Aw shit, it's the second anniversary of this shitty ass podcast. What's up everyone and welcome to another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live with me, Chase Lee, one of your co-hosts, and the other co-host, Brian Sudfield. On this week's episode, we will duel it out and we will take a look at our favorite trilogies of all time. It's going to be the list to end all lists, so your list doesn't even matter. I'm just kidding. Brian and I actually suck ass. You guys are the badass people out there. We are just a couple of dweebs on the internet bitching about movies. So what are we going to put on our trilogies list? You're going to have to sit down, relax, and find out. How's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live with me, Chase Lee, and my co-host,
Brian Sudfield.
That's fucking right. And hey, listen, guys, if you're new to the show, welcome. What we do is we take a look at some of the movies coming out on the weekend, and we will, pick an actor, actress, director, genre, what have you, and we will make a top 5 list according as such, honoring said movie, putting it on that fucking pedestal, or as the 40-year-old virgin would say it, the pussy pedestal. Anyways, that is how we do the show, and the cool thing about the show is that it's live, so we have no idea what the hell's going to come out of our mouths, and we don't know each other's list. And this week is especially going to be crazy because I don't know which fucking way he's going to go on the topic. But before we get into that, Brian, how are we doing this week?
The week is good, and I am doing good as well. How are you, Chase?
Just another day in the hood, I guess. I got a couple job prospects, so hopefully I can get a better job so I can afford a car, so I don't have to walk from to work and back. So that should be pleasant. But anyways, so this is a very special episode, Brian. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you're aware of the stipulations of the episode. I don't know if you're fully cognizant of what's going on. Do you have any idea what's going on?
Yeah, it's our second year anniversary, which is insane as fuck.
That is correct, and that means we have done at least 104 episodes as of today, or not today, but this episode. We've done 103 together. I did the first one by myself, but to make it even just past 100, that's fucking incredible. Dear God, I'm surprised Brian didn't walk away after the first 2 weeks. I can't believe we've been doing this shit for 2 years. We started when Brian was still in high school. That's how long ago it was. I just want you to keep that in mind. So, holy shit, we've been doing this since 2015, which has actually really been funny because, for all you new listeners out there, I like to tell the story, of how we started and whatnot. So, after I got done watching Inside Out in June of 2015, I went home and decided, you know what, I want to do this Saturday thing. Fuck it, let's just do it. So I did it by myself, and then Brian contacted me and said, I want to be a co-host. So then was born. And then he's been on ever since. So, so we've been doing this for 2 years. Brian, any memories you would like to share? What has been your favorite moment on this shit fest so far?
To me, I always love it whenever we have people on the show. The Three Coolest episode, which was our most stacked episode, it was us two, it was Ash from the Captain Fire show, and then Francesca, aka Cinema Darling. And I mean, you remember this very well. I mean, at one point she just randomly disappeared. Her connection just went blank, and then she comes back in the middle, I think, of your sentence, and then you're like, oh, the sub bitches trend. And then I made that great photo of her from when she was 13 in front of a Twilight poster with thumbs up and braces. I just said sub bitches.
Sub bitches.
So that was that's one of my favorite memories. I think mainly whenever we have people on, because then sometimes they can go all crazy on us, so it's actually really funny. I don't know. There's so many great memories. I just can't really think of any other ones on the top of my head. How about you?
I have to agree. Anytime we have a guest on, they see the craziness of how we do the show. I hope that everyone enjoys it when they're on. And Kenny, I haven't forgotten about you, brother. We will get you on whenever Blade Runner 2049 comes out. That episode is yours. Because Brian, I forgot to tell you, he's into sci-fi. So that episode, we're having him on. Because he was on what was that, the R-rated comedies, and he threw a fucking curveball. This fucking guy, He's one of my favorite fans of the show. He threw a fucking curveball, and he put a PG-13 one as number 1. But you know what? I said that was okay because it caught me off guard. It caught me by surprise, and I was like, you know what? I'm okay with it because it's a great movie. So yeah, we've even had one of our fans on. So that's it's been awesome, man. Let's keep it going. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get this episode started. Brian, best trilogies. What?
Yeah.
What? How are we even going to attack this? Like, how many people am I going to piss off when I say that Star Wars and Lord of the Rings is not on my list, but I decided to highlight other trilogies instead? How would you go about that? Are you
I'm gonna throw
or?
I'm gonna throw a curveball and say that Star Wars isn't on my list either, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. That's not even on my list. So
Listen,
I mean, it's good. I already know. I already have an idea what particular trilogies are going to be on your list. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something on there that I didn't expect. But I know for a damn fact a horror trilogy is going to be on there. I know for a damn fact a romantic trilogy is going to be on there. Those are my two particular ones that I know that you have on your list. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. This is going to be hands down my favorite episode we've done so far. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so like we've done the episode of, like what Brian said, threequels, where we mentioned our third favorite one in our franchise, but now we get to wrap the full trilogy together and just set up some rules. One per franchise. It has to have at least as long as it stopped at 3, because I was looking at some of the lists and I was like, well, that was really good, but it also has like a 4 and a 5. You know what I'm saying? So it has to have like a definitive 3 as of right now. There might be more in development, but as of right now, there is only 3 in that franchise. And
correct.
It can't be a trilogy like a Cornetto trilogy. As much as I love Edgar Wright, that is not the same characters being dipped over into the same story. They're 3 different movies, and I love him to death, but like that doesn't count. Yeah, you have to, like I said, at least 3 as of right now. Like I said, there could be more in development, but to wrap up a certain storyline in the 3, that's kind of like what we're looking for. So, all right. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get this started. All right. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to let you guys know all right now that all 5 of my picks are all different genres. Like, it's actually quite magical. Like, they're all 5 completely different. So, all right, Brian, let's start with you. Number 5, what is your favorite trilogy of all time so far? Because I know there's going to be more trilogies in our lifetime, but as of right now, in our prime of youth, what you got?
I actually was going to put the Cornetto trilogy as my number 5. Like, that was actually my number 5, but unfortunately, I should have asked you if that counted, but unfortunately, since it doesn't, I'm gonna go with my number 6, and that's the Back to the Future trilogy.
Hey, which is still a great trilogy. Yeah, we should probably decipher the rules before we started, but that's okay.
Yeah,
we do these things live, and we fuck up just for you guys. We're not professionals whatsoever. So, Back to the Future trilogy is a great pick. Not on my list, because like I said, I am very well aware of like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Back to the Future and stuff, and like those are like common trilogies that mostly everyone has on their list. I kind of want to throw a curveball and like throw 5 trilogies at you guys that I just absolutely adore, and I really want to kind of shine a little bit. Yeah, Back to the Future. Now, also, Brian, I don't know how you approach this, but I approach this episode as all 3 movies have to be at least great. Like, I looked at some trilogies and I was like, well, the first 2 were good, but then the third one was kind of iffy. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I'm talking like 3 at least all great movies. So, I would actually contend that Back to the Future counts that with me, because I actually really do like the third one quite a bit. My second one being the favorite, but not on my list. But Brian, tell us why it's on yours.
To me, I actually think the second and third movie are actually really underrated movies. I understand that they may not be on the levels of the first one, because the first one to me is in my top 5 films of all time. That film inspired me so much as a filmmaker. It was so original and innovative and just so much fun, and had elements of comedy, sci-fi, adventure. And then, the sequel was very risky and had very high expectations because of how good the first one was. And I know a lot of people said that the story lacked creativity and, it had some remake fever and everything. I totally understand that, the fact that they go from 2015 back to 1985 to an alternative 1985 and then back to 1955. It's insane. But then the third film, they go back to the West, and it had a mix of originality in it. And, I'm not the biggest Western fan, but I really loved the way they injected into this trilogy because I thought it was a really clever send-off to these characters. And I have to really give credit to Robert Zemeckis. He directed all three of these movies, and, he co-wrote them with the great Bob Gale. And Steven Spielberg produced them, of course. I just think that this trilogy is one of those few trilogies that still stands on its own. Like, it still holds up very well despite being the first one came out in 1985, so that's 32 years ago. This trilogy is 32 years old, and no one ever expected sequels to Back to the Future, but they happened, and to my surprise, they're both really good. Now, when I first watched them, I wasn't really fond of them because I'm like, the first one was so incredible, and these two sequels are just good. But then I rewatched them again, and they're, in my opinion, really solid. I think this trilogy is outstanding. I would love to see Robert Zemeckis maybe do another trilogy of sorts, but that's not going to happen. But hey, you gotta respect the man for creating one of the greatest stories of all time. Marty McFly, Doc Brown, George McFly, Lorraine, Biff Tannen. I just love the portrayal of this story, and it introduced me to Huey Lewis, and I just think Back to the Future is perfect. The entire trilogy alone is perfect.
Yeah, it's a really, really good trilogy. And didn't they shoot 2 and 3 at the same time?
They did. They shot it back to back, which was something that a lot of films decided to do later on. Matrix 2 and 3 did that. Pirates 2 and 3 did that. It worked for Back to the Future 2 and 3 because they took place immediately after, like, with each other. Like, the second one took place, and then the third one took place like immediately after it, so it makes sense.
So the second to the first one, like, they could have shot all 3 back to back, and
they could have
totally fine. But they wanted to see how the first one did, and obviously it was a huge hit. And I feel really bad for Zemeckis because nowadays in modern times, his films are not doing well. Like, I actually like modern Zemeckis quite a bit. Like, I love Flight. The Walk was really good. Allied was good too. Allied was fine, but I can see the passion in there. Like, he's not like a terrible director. He's very old school, and he's got like that old school mentality, like that old Hollywood mentality, and he kind of needs to adapt just a little bit to kind of, speak to a broader audience. I still like the movies he's pumping out, but if he wants to stay in the business, he's got to have a hit. I mean, he has to, because his movies have not been doing well. The Flight was probably the last good one, with people and like box office wise, because it got Denzel a nomination. So, but yeah, I don't understand why people don't support him as much. But yeah, great pick. I'm gonna go on the opposite end. I'm gonna go popcorn fun with this one. So I was debating back and forth what superhero trilogy I should put on here. Now, I could have easily gone with the Dark Knight trilogy, because first one's really good, second one is going to be a classic down the line, and the third one is good. It's a good movie. I'm not saying it's great, but I chose the one where the first one I thought was great, loved it. The second one upped its game, loved it even more. The third one upped its game even more, and I would consider that one of the best trilogies of all time. So until we get War for the Planet of the Apes, this is going to take its spot. I'm going to give my number 5 to Captain America, the good old Chris Evans Marvel trilogy. When you watch that first one, it's such a great origin story. It really kind of captures the times. I really like the way the film looks. I love the character of Steve Rogers and just him kind of adapting to his powers and really kind of becoming that hero. The second one is a very a very good movie, like based on friendship and relationships and whatnot, and there's turmoil there. And the third one is just so heavy with the drama and like everything that's happened since the second one. There's so much shit that has caused so much divide, and Cap is so committed to his friend because that's just who he is, and he's got that military mentality. It's such a great progression of the character, and it's such a great trilogy overall, while upping its game in each one. Even though I like the first one quite a bit, and like I said, I love the first one, but they do up their game in the second and the third. So that is definitely my favorite trilogy of Marvel thus far, until Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 pumps out a good one, and I might have a debate because right now it's Cap. Thor Ragnarok looks really great, but the second one's kind of ass, so I wouldn't consider that a strong trilogy. Iron Man's fine. It's a fine trilogy. And then when we get Avengers 3, I don't know, I might change my tune then too, because I really like the second one. So, Brian, you probably didn't put this one on your list. You probably put the other comic rival on the list. So, I mean, is Captain America, do you think it's going to go down as one of the better superhero trilogies out there?
Absolutely. It's like you said, the first one was really good, but it stepped up its game with the second one, then stepped it up even more with the third one, because, I understand when a lot of people say Winter Soldier may be the best Marvel movie in terms of filmmaking. I understand that it was, a spy espionage thriller, but to me, Civil War is the best Marvel movie ever made. It's not my favorite one, but it's the best one they've done, because of how much they were able to put together in that one movie, have so many characters, and yet they managed to balance out everyone in the movie, including the villain, and I was just really impressed with it, and I think I understand why you put it on your list totally. It's a fun trilogy. It's definitely more lighthearted than the other superhero trilogy that I'll talk about in just a second, but it's still incredible, and I think a lot of people, when you talk about superhero trilogies, this is going to be one that's overlooked because of the other one, but I understand. But you can't push aside the Captain America trilogy. All three of those movies are really solid, with the second and third being incredible movies all around. So yeah, good pick, strong pick, definitely.
Yeah, I think you knew I was going to go that route anyways, because I like Captain America more than Batman. I'm not saying that Batman films are terrible. Like, I'm one of the main advocates for BVS, but as a character, I don't know. I guess I relate to Steve Rogers more. Sometimes I feel like I'm a man out of his own time sometimes, so I kind of relate to him a little bit more versus Batman, where parents are dead and you go on a vigilante rampage. I can't really relate to that. It's one of those things I can't relate to. So, all right, number 4, what you got?
We just brought it up. The Dark Knight trilogy is my number 4.
There it is, folks. All right, so explain to me why I am wrong and you are right. Let's have a friendly little debate.
Never said you were wrong, but in all honesty, as well done as the Captain America trilogy is, this is the one that's better in terms of filmmaking. Christopher Nolan directed this trilogy at the time before Batman Begins came out. He had done Following, Memento, and Insomnia. I actually am going to watch Following very soon, because that's the only Nolan movie I haven't seen. And Memento's incredible. Insomnia is incredible. When he stepped on Batman Begins, this was a period where Batman films were basically dead. After Batman Robin, no one knew where Batman was going to go when it came to his big screen. The comic about TV shows, the video games, but no one knew where it was going to go with movies. Christopher Nolan decided to tackle this, and he brought this character in a way that wasn't even expected. He made it extremely dark, extremely realistic, and it's incredible because for Batman Begins, he doesn't become Batman until I would say an hour and a half into the movie. Like, he needed to do Batman, but he isn't physically Batman until the last of the movie. Insane, because it had like Spider-Man 2 elements where he wasn't Spider-Man for most of the movie. He was Peter Parker for most of it. And I guess that's a similar tone when it happened in Dark Knight Rises, where he was more Bruce Wayne than Batman. I just think this trilogy is incredible. And, The Dark Knight, it's one of the best films ever made. It's probably the best comic book movie ever made. One of them for sure. And it took it to a whole different game by not making it so much more of a comic book movie. It was more of like an action thriller movie. And then, the third one, which I think is pretty underrated. I know a lot of people give it flack. I understand that it wasn't as good as The Dark Knight, but I still think it's a really solid conclusion to this trilogy, that they built 7 years into. All the acting was great. Obviously, Heath Ledger, incredible performance. Can't say enough. The visuals, a lot of practical effects, little CGI, which is something that Nolan is typical with. Hans Zimmer's score, outstanding. It's just a really gritty trilogy, and it's just insane. Like, Christian Bale was an incredible Bruce Wayne. Despite the voice of Batman, I still really liked him a lot. And then you have Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, many other talented actors. And I mean, I wouldn't like Civil War to me was kind of a good end to the Captain America trilogy, saga, thing, majiggy, whatever. Dark Knight Rises wrapped the series perfectly well. Like it ended so well, and obviously left some questions unanswered. But not every movie can answer all the questions. But Nolan crafting this trilogy, it's one of the best ever made. He's just a master at what he does, and I just think it's the best superhero trilogy we've ever had thus far. And if there's anything that tops it, I'm curious to see what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It has more of a grounded flavor to it. That's why a lot of people kind of gravitate more towards this trilogy than any other superhero trilogy, because it feels real. It feels like these are real events happening in a real city because of what Nolan does with practical effects versus CGI. So yeah, it's a great pick. Now, to go on the opposite end of the spectrum, no joke, this is my number 4. I wanted to put a comedy on here.
I know where he's going. I know where he's going with this.
So I almost wanted to put Austin Powers. Like I almost wanted to, because like all 3 of those movies kill me with laughter. However, when I was a kid, I really never watched slapstick. But when I was a teenager and I started like noticing what Jim Carrey did, I kind of wanted to go back and see like, who else did slapstick back in the day? And of course, I started with like the Marx Brothers and Charlie Chaplin, worked my way up, and then I eventually got into the Zucker films, Airplane, and I really liked it. And I've seen a couple other movies that have been either produced or directed by Zucker or whatnot, but I think these sets of movies arguably could be known as some of the best slapstick movies in history. And it's a prime example as to how slapstick can work and not be like the turds that are Meet the Spartans and that fuckery of a group. I'm going to go with the Naked Gun trilogy. I think it's some of the best slapstick ever. Now, of course, it does have an alleged quote-unquote murderer in it, but OJ. But as a whole, like as the trilogy, it's really funny. Like, I don't think there's any weak points in any one of them. Leslie Nielsen's always at the top of his game, playing that kind of like, unaware, kind of stupid cop, and all the shit's happening around him, and he always causes trouble. And I think they're all 3 just super clever. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are or how old these movies get, they're always so fucking funny. Even if you think the jokes are cheesy, you still kind of smirk a little bit. You're like, it's kind of cheesy, but it's okay. But I think for the most part, they work for me. They kill me every single time. So in terms of comedies, it was between this and Austin Powers, but I decided to go with slapstick because these movies prove that you can still do it and do it. Excuse me. Woo! There it is, guys. That you can do it very well. It's really funny when you hear about Leslie Nielsen, the fact that he started in dramas in his acting career, and then he eventually kind of morphed into this slapstick realm with like Airplane and the Naked Gun trilogy, and then Spy Hard. He also did Wrongfully Accused, which I own. It makes fun of The Fugitive, and it's just as funny as the Naked Gun movies, but I think it's a solid trilogy. it's absolutely wonderful. It's delightful. They made a film adaptation out of a TV show. It worked for me. And all three are just comedic treasures. So, Brian, what do you have to comment on this?
The Naked Gun movies, I actually have only seen the first two. I've never seen the third one. Leslie Nielsen is a comedic talent. Airplane and Naked Gun are easily my favorite things he's done. I love the man. That Canadian bastard. He's a hell of a man, and I totally get why you would put a slapstick, because comedy, you adore comedy. I asked you why, but I don't have any comedic trilogies on here. To me, my favorite comedic trilogy, even though it's not really a trilogy, it's the Cornetto trilogy, but hey, what can you do? I really appreciate spoof movies from back in the day. I wish they were still good. I really have faith, but unfortunately, the ones we've had within the last 5 to 10 years have all sucked. The Spartan movies, like you said, the Haunted House movies, 50 Shades of Black, many other ones. I cannot believe that. Remember they announced that they were going to do like a Star Wars movie that has the longest title in the whole fucking world?
It's from the same fucking dudes as Meet the Spartans disaster movie, epic movie. Ugh.
I hope it tanks. I hope everybody just loses their jobs. And if there's any cool people attached to it, I feel so sorry for you. No, but that was the epitome of spoof movies, slapstick movies. It was so much fun, and it sucks that we don't have comedies like that anymore. It really is a shame.
Yeah, it's just like I said. If you like slapstick and you want to watch more of that airplane modern, airplane era type of movies, I would suggest that. The only cool thing to come out of the Meet the Spartan filmmakers is that, you remember that terrible one, Vampires Suck?
Yeah.
I actually, there's a random joke in there, because all their fucking movies are random. There's a random joke where the camera pans and it's Lady Gaga like just dancing in the living room or whatever. You're thinking to yourself, like, why are you mentioning this story? Well, I actually know the actress that played the Lady Gaga role. She actually auditioned for a short film I did in film school. And she said her credits, she had that on her resume, and I was like, holy fuck, it kind of looks like you. And she's like, yeah, that was me. I was like, damn, that's cool. So that's the only cool thing to happen from those movies. Other than that, they can burn in a fiery pit and suck a huge cock. So, yeah, because it's movies like that kill the slapstick genre, and it pisses me off. So, all right, number 3, what do you got? Now, Brian, really think about this, because you're getting into your top 3 of your trilogies. So this is it. This is the definitive list that will pretty much shape your personality. It will shape you as a character. This shapes you. So what is your number 3? And I think Brian died. All right, so all right, so Brian is officially dead, but that's okay though, because this is what happens when you do this shit live. So I'm gonna go ahead and call him again. But I hope you guys are doing very well. It's another week in the summer. It's hot as fuck here in Texas. A lot of people complain about the heat in like California and shit, and then you come to the South and you just get your fucking face burned off. Alright, so trying to call him back. Alright. Well. Alright, Alright. Oh man, that was really awkward. Alright.
So, fuck you, internet.
Oh. Hey, listen. Second year anniversary. If there wasn't anything crazy that didn't happen, I'd be literally disappointed. So I'm glad that happened for our listeners. So there you go. There's your 2-year gift. All right. So moving on to you. I said I was ramping it up, and then your connection cut. So I said, all right, Brian. Here's your top 3. This is what molds you as a person. So think very carefully about what you're about to say for your top 3. So what is your number 3 spot? I can't hear you.
Is that a yes or no?
Okay, now I can hear you. All right, so
Okay,
well,
my number 3 is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
so we've had 2 fuck ups in the past 5 minutes. What the hell's wrong with us? All right, Lord of the Rings. Like I said, I didn't want to put it on there because it was an obvious choice. I wanted to put, like I said, more trilogies on here that I personally have enjoyed and watched way more times than Lord of the Rings. As much as I like Lord of the Rings, and I can prove it to you guys, I have the extended edition of all 3 of them. I adore it to death, but the replay value is a little tough sometimes. So I went with more replay value than anything. So, but I don't hate on anyone that put Lord of the Rings on there because I absolutely love that franchise, and I like the Hobbit films. So there you go. All right, so Brian, tell us why good old J.R. Tolkien has crafted this to life for you.
When it comes to filmmaking, I would say that out of the trilogies, this is probably the coolest one made because they actually shot all 3 of these movies back to back. And if you watch carefully, there are times where you can note that they look younger but older. I remember when I first saw Return of the King, and it was the sequence where Sam, Frodo, and Gollum arrive at the mountain that Gollum claims is Mordor. You see a shot of Sam and Frodo looking up. It looks like Frodo from Fellowship. Then you watch some sequences from Fellowship where Elijah Wood looks older. And it's kind of funny. It's weird. It's like continuity errors, and it's actually kind of funny. But in all honesty, this is cinematically probably the best blockbuster trilogy ever made. You know, Peter Jackson at the time, he wasn't really a well-known guy in the United States, in North America. He did make some smaller movies, but he never made anything big. This was his big break, you know. I gotta give the man credit. All 3 of these films were nominated for Best Picture, which is something very rare for a trilogy. The only trilogies that have done this are this and the Godfather trilogy. The Godfather trilogy, by the way, is not on my list. I love the first 2. The third one, but I gotta give the man credit for what he did with this trilogy. He brought this story into 3 parts, and you know all these movies are incredibly long. A lot of them are 3. The first 2 are almost 3 hours long, and the third one is over 3 hours long. So you know I gotta give the man credit, and I agree with you. The replay value may not be super high compared to other trilogies. To me, I could rewatch these films over and over again. Mainly the first and third; those are the ones I could rewatch the most. And I love the second one, but that's probably the hardest one to watch because it is the middle film, and you know that's when there's a lot of filler. But in a good way, it is very important what happens in the second film. Everyone from Elijah Wood to Ian McKellen to the always wonderful Viggo Mortensen, Elena Bloom, Liv Tyler, Sean Astin, Andy Serkis, everybody is on their A game. Everyone's phenomenal in these movies. The effects are astoundingly terrific. The score by Howard Shore, wonderful. Cinematography, incredible. These effects really just blow my socks off. Like, I just really love the craft that was put into these movies. And then, you know, the third one, I mean, these are all fantastic dramas, but the third one alone, it's absolutely heartbreaking. There's a lot of heartbreaking moments in this trilogy. The sequence where they do arrive at Mordor, and you know Sam has to carry Frodo up. That scene is absolutely tear-jerking. It is so subtle and so beautiful. It just shows the power of love and friendship in just one particular trilogy. Like Sam and Frodo, you know, these guys they're a team, and it's really beautiful. And the way it all ends, you know, it's perfect. And you know, I have to agree. I like all the Hobbit movies. The second one's my favorite. The second one's a fantastic movie. I think it's underrated. You know, critically it did well, but honestly, the second one's a pretty underrated movie. The first one's good, and the third one was good too. So you know, yeah. But Peter Jackson, gotta commend the man for creating one of the best trilogies of all time. And you know, the third film won every fucking Oscar it was nominated for. 11 Oscars: Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, and then all the technical stuff. So you know, gotta give the man credit for what he did by bringing one of the most iconic books of all time onto the big screen in the best way possible. No one could have made this trilogy like the way Peter Jackson did, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my number 3.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of commend Peter Jackson for filming everything back to back and doing all that hard work he put in to all three of those and the Hobbit movies. Like, the guy's a fucking beast. And, you know, the Lord of the Rings movies were just, it was one of those things that kind of swept the nation. Like, you know, the first one came out, it did very well, and then the second one came out, it was even more popular than the third one. Like you said, won Best Picture. I think, as of today, it's probably the most nominations a trilogy has under their belt. Like, there's no way that any other trilogy has beaten it. It had like an average of like 10 to 11 per film. So it's like damn near 30 nominations for that whole trilogy. That's fucking incredible. But yeah, it's a great pick. I always like going back to Middle Earth. They are just grand epic fantasies that if that's your bag and you like to get super geeky about like I do, congratulations, because it is one of the coolest things to geek out about, you know, with different worlds and different characters and whatnot. And for the Hobbit trilogy, I have to say, I do like all three of them, but the problem is I do kind of wish Jackson would have did his original plan and only did 2 films, because the third one, I felt like there was a little steam lost, because the way the second one ended, Desolation of Smaug, the way it ended, you kind of wanted to see directly afterwards. So when you had to wait an entire year and that movie started, the Battle of the Five Armies, it didn't have as much impact leading to it, because it was literally the events right after Smaug and you had to wait an entire year for it. So I kind of wish he would have just did 2 films. It probably would have worked out better that way. But it's still a solid trilogy, in my opinion. But Lord of the Rings is definitely far better, just on a cinematic scale. But Peter Jackson, speaking of Jackson, you said something, you said he wasn't really well known at the time. It's true. The only film I ever saw of Peter Jackson's before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, now I saw it way later when I was older, but a movie that came out before that trilogy was called Dead Alive, and it is regarded as one of the goriest films ever put on film, which it is. It is a gore fest. I fucking love it. There's a lawnmower scene where this guy's like chopping people left and right. It's like a zombie film, and it is like over the top campy gore, and it is absolutely wonderful. So my number 3, and I bled into that on purpose. So my number 3, I decided to go with a different kind of franchise. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, like, well, you just said that your number 5 slot was the only one within its genre. I mean, that's true. I could easily go back to that genre. And so, for my number 3, I'm going to do a trilogy that's directed by Sam Raimi. And
I knew this was coming, ladies and gentlemen.
So, Brian, do you think I have tricked the audience yet? Do you think they know which one I'm talking about?
I don't know.
It is not the Spider-Man trilogy. It is actually the Evil Dead trilogy. I fucking love this franchise. I love the remake. I love the original trilogy. I love the TV show. I love this whole fucking world, and Bruce Campbell needs to be my uncle stat. Anyways, the original trilogy, if you guys have not seen it, it's about a group of kids that go into a cabin. Oh, yeah, I know. It's so predictable. Listen, Sam Raimi shot this movie for I think $300,000, or even a little less probably. I think it was $175,000. But he shot this movie on a budget with these unknown actors in a cabin about these kids that go to the cabin or whatever. They discover this book. It's the Book of the Dead, and they open it up. They accidentally read it, and they bring out the Deadites, which are a combination of possessed dead people, so possessed zombies, and they have to chop them up before they take their souls. And so the first one, it was a very low budget horror film, but it had such a unique style to it. It was overly gory, and I brought up Peter Jackson's Dead Alive and segued into that because I actually watched Evil Dead and Dead Alive back to back. So the first one, it's really gory, and Bruce Campbell, who plays Ash, who he kind of morphs into this main character because he's actually the side character the entire movie, and then he just kind of morphs into the main character at the end, and you're like, where is it going to go from here? Then the second one is actually a repeat of the first one, except it's more of a comedy take. It's more of a horror comedy. So it really kind of adapted into its own unique genre instead of being a horror genre, which is still pretty terrifying, by the way. If you watch the new show Ash vs. Evil Dead, there's some terrifying moments, but for the most part, it's cheesy, it's slapsticky, it's very hokey, but it's very stylish and cool and gory. But the second one kind of adapted that horror comedy vibe. Then the third one is like a medieval fantasy movie. What the fuck is happening, folks? Like that, it just went off the rails, but it was still enjoyable. It's Army of Darkness, and Ash gets transported into medieval times, and he's fighting off skeletons. It's absolutely, it's hilarious, it's fun, it's enjoyable. But I think what really sells this franchise is Bruce Campbell. His personality and his charisma sell me throughout the entire thing. And then, of course, I actually really like Fede Alvarez's remake from 2011, and I actually really love the show quite a bit, and I cannot wait for the new season to hit this fall. If you are into horror films, if you're into gory horror films, if you're into horror comedies, if you're into medieval fantasies, check it out. It is a great fucking trilogy, and that is my favorite trilogy that Sam Raimi has done. I know, Spider-Man is out there, but Evil Dead will always be my favorite thing that Sam has ever done. So, Brian, you knew it was going to be on here. Did you think it was going to be higher, or did you think it was going to be in the middle?
I knew it was going to be higher. Absolutely. Because when we've done anything related to horror, you would always put Evil Dead on the list. I remember when we did the Three Close episode last year, I think you put Army of Darkness at your number 3 or 4. It was really high on your list, and you love this franchise, and hey, I totally get it. I'm not a big horror fan. I've started to become a big horror fanatic within the last year. I love the first one. I really like the second one. Still haven't watched the third one yet. I'm waiting to find it. I have to find it somewhere. And then after that, I'm going to watch the show because I really want to watch the show. I hear it's one of the best shows on TV right now, so
it's
a good
so
thing.
Good. So fucking good.
I hear it's fantastic.
If you want to know the quality of the show, it's actually on Starz, and Starz right now is doing American Gods, and that's also getting critical praise. And I've seen the first 3 episodes, so Starz is doing it big right now. They're competing very, very well with HBO and Showtime.
Yeah, and I have seen most of the reboot remake. I really like it. Fede Alvarez to me has a lot of talent because I really loved Don't Breathe. But no, Evil Dead trilogy, it's totally different from most of the top 10 trilogy lists. I mean, no one ever puts the Evil Dead trilogy on here. It's definitely one of the more underrated trilogies of all time. And it's good that we enjoyed, even though, like I said, I haven't seen the third one, but I've seen 2/3 of the trilogy, so I'm pretty good, guys. I'm fine. But that's an awesome pick, and I knew for a fact it was going to be high up. I just knew it.
Yeah, it's one of those franchises where it's going to have a huge cult following, so I know it's not for everyone. Like, if you're not into overly gory horror films, probably not going to be for you. But that's my style. Like I said, this list pretty much suits my taste and everything. So, and Brian's as well as his. So, Evil Dead is so fucking fun. It is such a fun franchise, and the show is like Bruce Campbell. This fucking guy starts out in the first movie in the fucking 80s. He's now doing the show of the character that he started out with in the modern era. It's fucking awesome. Come on, man. And he's just as badass on the show, saying cheesy one-liners, blowing fucking deadites' heads off. It's amazing. I know I get amped up about that trilogy, but I have a couple others that are higher than that. Which ones are they? We'll have to find out, but Brian's going to go first. Brian, I'm going to make a proposal. So we have 2 more slots left. If we are channeling correctly, are we going to have at least one similar one? If it's the one I'm thinking about.
We have to, honestly. We have to have one that's similar. Or it could be 2 that are similar. Who the hell knows? Because like I said, I didn't put Star Wars on my list, so it's not here. I think we have the same top 2. Now I don't know if we have them in the same order, but I think we have the same 2. Because you made the rule saying that if there's already 3 and say there's another one in development and there's only been 3 that have released, it counts, right?
Correct, because as of right now, at this recording, the fourth one, the fifth one, whatever, it has not come out, so it is standing as a trilogy. And if you think about it, because I know which one you're talking about, it wraps up that storyline. So
yes.
What is your number two?
My number two, I'm going with the trilogy that I'm not talking about. I'm going with the Before trilogy, directed by the one and only Richard Linklater.
Okay.
Oh fuck! It's your number one.
It's a little too low for my taste, but we'll get to it.
I knew this was gonna happen where it was reversed. Okay, listen. I did not watch this trilogy until about I think the same year Boyhood came out, so 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
anyways,
2014.
Yes. The Before trilogy, if you guys don't know what this is about, it is just a romance trilogy following Jesse and Celine, played by Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. Once, like I said, directed by the always fantastic Richard Linklater. The first one, Before Sunrise, they meet on a train and they just walk around the country that they're in and they just talk. That's it. The second one takes place 9 years later with Before Sunset. Now that one, to me, is my favorite one, and I'll explain why. First of all, I like all three of them. The dialogue is absolutely fantastic. This one got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, incredible chemistry. Astoundingly beautiful, just terrific chemistry. And I think that, to me, the fact that it's shot in real time, because the movie's only 85 minutes long, it takes place within the course of those 85 minutes. It doesn't jump like 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, 2 hours later. It doesn't do any of that stuff. The first and third film did that. This one didn't, and I think it's the best thing Richard Linklater has done. Yes, I love Boyhood a lot. Boyhood is incredible. But somehow, part of me thinks that Before Sunset is the best one, and Before Midnight is a perfect conclusion to this, coming out as well 9 years later in 2013. This trilogy took place over the course of 18 years. No one ever expected, like, if you saw Before Sunrise in 1995 when it came out, did you guys expect a sequel to this movie? 2 sequels, in fact? I know I wouldn't have. Believe me, I would never expected a romance trilogy to come out, and this is hands down the best romance story ever put to film. This is my favorite romance put to film, and it's spawned into 3 movies, which is incredible. The dialogue is outstanding. The story is incredible. And the first one, they're young, they're like in their 20s. They're around Chase's age, when the movie begins, so, they're young and everything. The second one, they're in their 30s, and they somewhat have grown up while still having that youth element to them. In the third one, they have kids together. They're a couple now. They're older. They're in their 40s, and they're going through actual relationship problems. And when the last 20 minutes happens, you have no idea where it's going to go. You have no idea what's going to happen. It ends in a very depressing manner. I'm not going to say what happens, of course, because not everybody listening to this show has probably even seen these movies. But it lets my jaw drop in, like, just how incredible this story was put together, how enthralling these characters were well developed. I was just so engrossed by this storyline, and I have to commend Richard Linklater for doing that, because Richard Linklater, he's one of the best filmmakers we have, and for making a trilogy about 2 people falling in love as they slowly start falling in love with each other, it's masterclass filmmaking, and I gotta commend the man big time. Before trilogy is just one of the best ever made, for sure. And if you guys have not watched it, and you're filmmakers, cinephiles, fans of romance especially, you have to watch the Before films. They may not be for everybody, but coming from some guy who really does not like romance movies, I really adored all 3 of these movies. I think they're 3 of the best movies of the last like 20 years, and this is one of the best trilogies of all time. It's my second favorite one that has happened thus far.
I'm going to have to pass. So my number 2, I will agree with you that if you are a filmmaker or a writer, you need to watch those films. My number 2, I mean, I feel bad. I feel a little bad for Brian because he didn't get to like really grow up with it chronologically like I did. The first one came out in 1995. I was 5 years old. It was groundbreaking. Watched it over and over again. I can still show you the VHS copy that I have. The fucking thing is torn to shreds because of how much I've watched it. It is worn down. 1999 rolls around. Which, first of all, side note, 1999 is a great fucking year for film. American Pie, Magnolia. I mean, come on. Among many other, American Beauty. The sequel came out in 99, and it just kind of blew me away on how emotional it was and how it really found its footing in terms of stuff that we can relate to as an audience. Number 3 rolls around. I was 20, so I was 2 years older than the character, the human character, and so seeing someone part ways with something they've kind of loved throughout their childhood, everyone can relate to that. It stings you in the heart when you watch it. And I shed a tear multiple times throughout all 3 of them. What trilogy am I talking about? I am talking about good old Story of Toy. Toy Story is my second pick for my second favorite trilogy. It is amazing to watch the first one and chronologically watch them because the animation does get better. I will not lie. The first one does look a little choppy in the animation, but that was their first ever wide release as a studio. Pixar, they've gotten better, obviously, but this was their kind of first one they came out the gate with, and it completely crushed. It was a story that every kid could relate to. Every time when I left my room to go to school when I was a kid, I always imagine, do my action figures, do they, fucking fight while I'm gone, or they, fight to the death or whatever? Like, was always curious about that, and they kind of brought that to life in such a playful manner with really engaging stories. And then the second one is really devastating, and then the third one, it kind of crushes you when you're around the age of Andy, who's leaving off to go to college. Like, I've been through that before. Like, you have to leave everything behind and start this new life, this new chapter. And on top of all that, the voice casting is some of the best group voice casting I've ever heard in an animated film. Tim Allen and Tom Hanks, fucking great chemistry. Are you kidding me? Like, that's going to go down as one of my favorite pairings ever in film. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, Buzz Lightyear and Woody are my probably some of my favorite animated duos, period. I love them so much. I love their chemistry and how they're so different in their thought process. And of course, Buzz starts to become more a part of the family in the third one, but their chemistry is still there. Make no mistake about it. The stories are always so rich. The characters are always rich. It's really funny. Like, all 3 of them always have great jokes. The Toy Story is definitely the bread and butter franchise in terms of where they started and how they ended it and stuff. It's just like, I feel like that's where they put the most passion into these films, was the Toy Story franchise. I just feel like everyone at Pixar really kind of put their all into all 3 films and really just kind of made something special. Now, they are making a 4th one, but I would consider this trilogy as a strong set trilogy, and the 4th one hasn't even been made yet. So at the time of this recording, this still counts. Now, if we do an updated list later on, it will not count because the 4th one will be out already. Yeah, so, what was I about to say? I have no clue. Guys, I'm tired. Anyways, Toy Story is my number 2. Brian, what do you have to say about that?
Pass.
Well, thank you for ruining a chance to have both of our number 2s the same. Anyways, let's jump into our number 1s, guys. Oh, gee, I wonder what they are. I will bounce off what Brian said about the Before trilogy because that is my number one. And I will say this. I am also not a fan of romance films. I like a specific breed of romance films. I have the Before trilogy. I have Eternal Sunshine, Blue Valentine, Her. What else do I have? 500 Days of Summer. I like a certain group of them. I'm not like a huge fan of them, but when they really hit, they hit. What's great about the Before trilogy is how organic they are. You want to talk about 3 movies that are 99.9% dialogue heavy. And the fact that you are so glued to the screen, you're so enticed, and you just want to see this couple work out, and you want to just hear the conversations talking about fucking making a sandwich. Like, that's how well written these films are. And, you know, the second and the third one, the actors got a little bit more involved in the script writing process. So it really even came across as more organic than the first one. And the first one already flowed in a very natural way. Second one playing in real time, which is fucking fantastic. Are you kidding me? Like, I can't believe they did that shit. Like, when you realize all this heavy, dense dialogue that you have to remember, and you have to act as if this is, you know, genuine, and it doesn't feel forced, it doesn't feel like you're line reading, it is very hard to do. But Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy have some of the best chemistry in any romance film. And what's weird is, like, they don't click at first. It takes them a while to actually get into it, and even by the third one, they're still having trouble with their relationship. But it's like one of those, as the saying goes, opposites attract, right? And so, you know, the second one is even more devastating. When you find out how the movie starts and, you know, how it ends and whatnot, it's 2 people. There are these star-crossed lovers that aren't really together, but they're you know, the universe keeps pulling them together. And when you get to the third one, yes, they are a little bit more together, but they're still opposites. But they make it work because they just have this, like, weird love bond between them. It's kind of hard to explain. Love is hard to explain, people. And when you watch these films, you're like, you know, sometimes you can't really see them together because they're always conflicting. But when they're kind to each other and they're talking everything out, there's that real love that's there that's missing from most of these romance films. Everything feels so factory made. It feels so just paint by the numbers that it really takes balls of a filmmaker to have 2 people talking for an hour and a half and have it be compelling as shit. So if you guys have not seen these movies, they are my favorite Richard Linklater films, and he's done a great catalog so far. It's my favorite set of films he's ever done. If you want to be a writer, an actor, director, watch how they do it. Because Brian's right. Before Sunrise is literally just 2 people talking from when they step off of a train, walk through a city, end up at a park, and then go back to the train station. That is fucking it. But we know a lot about these characters. We know a lot about, you know, their likes, their dislikes, their personality. And you're like, wow, this feels like 2 real people talking like I would just see down the street somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So the Before trilogy is one of my favorite romance stories ever put on film. It probably is because I didn't even know these movies existed. Adam Bilbrey, I remember, who is a fellow film critic. He doesn't do them as much anymore, but we were talking one night and he suggested I watch them. And I'm going to admit something on air. So don't chastise me for it, because I turned around and I bought them. But he handed me the kind of locker versions of all 3 of them. I started watching the first one at like 9 or 10 p.m. I watched all 3 in the same fucking night. I went to work dead-ass tired the next morning because I just enjoyed it so much. It was such a great experience, and now I own them. So yes, I bought them. I fucking hate pirates too, but just chill, folks. Can't all be angels sometimes. But yeah, I bought them because I absolutely love them. I wish I would have waited though, because I want to get that Criterion trilogy collection, but it's fucking $60. So, you know, I'm fine with just the DVDs for now. But that is my number 1. Brian, why is Toy Story your number 1? What about it means to you so much?
When I was a little kid, I watched Toy Story religiously. I watched the first two so much when I was a little kid. I dressed up as Woody one year for Halloween. I really loved, this series. I loved the characters. I loved the voice casting. I loved the story. I loved the heart, the comedy put into these films. When the third one was coming out, which I never expected to happen, I was so excited for it because this was like, something that I was so ecstatic to watch. Like, I remember I went after school. This was like towards the end of the year, so we had half days. I was in 6th grade, I remember.
Good Lord.
I know. I still think it's insane.
I was fucking 20 years old when that came out.
Believe me, I saw many people your age in the theater when I went to go see one of my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was like,
we're 90s kids. We grew up with that shit.
I know. It's similar to how it was when me and my friends went to go see Finding Dory last summer. There were more of us, like more kids my age and people your age than little kids, because little kids don't know what the fuck's going on. Toy Story 3, it was just as good as the first two. And then it became more depressing, and I saw the movie 5 more times, which I have no idea why. I guess I just loved it so much that I don't know. I put myself through hell 6 times watching that fucking incinerator scene, watching that goddamn ending. Oh my god! But it is so clever and innovative and just beautiful. And yes, I have to agree with you. When you rewatch the original one from 1995, the animation is a bit clunky, but people have to keep this in mind. This was the very first CGI animated movie ever, so it was something in it like very different for animation because everything beforehand was like 2D animation. So this was a big step for the animation world, and obviously it was Pixar's first movie, and it's the signature Pixar franchise. Nothing could top Toy Story. I mean. Cars 3 comes out this weekend, and I'm sure it's meh, but, Toy Story is the epitome of Pixar, not only because it's their first film they've done, but it's their signature character. Everybody and their moms and their fathers and their brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody loves Toy Story. No matter what age you are, you can love Toy Story. You can watch it and just get an enjoyment out of it. When it came out, Tom Hanks, at the time, he was a big actor. He had won 2 Oscars. And this was the same year Apollo 13 came out, which is fantastic. And Tim Allen, of course, he was on Home Improvement, which was like the #1 comedy show on television. So this was a big thing for all of them. And then you had some comedic actors attached. Then the second one came out, and Joan Cusack was pretty big at the time. Kelsey Grammer, obviously because of Frasier. It's amazing. The level of heart, the emotion, and the relatability when watching all 3 of these movies is incredible. And look, while I do not really want a 4th movie, I'm really curious to know what they're going to do with it. I think it's going to be really good. They have the original people coming back. I think it's going to be really solid. There's no way that they would disappoint us because John Lasseter did say we were only going to make a 4th one if we had a good enough story. I guess they have a good enough story to give to us. And the movie comes out in 2 years, so, it's not that far down the road. I'm really interested to see.
Let's keep this in mind. This is also the same guy who wanted to push the Cars movies.
I know.
You have to keep that in the back of your mind. It's like, as much as I like Lasseter, and I would consider him like a godlike figure for the animation industry, he pushes those Cars movies because I know his kids like it. I know he likes it, but they're just so subpar. I know they can do better. So saying he has a good story, I'm mixed on it. I gotta see like a trailer first before I can determine anything.
Yeah, I totally get that, and it's insane because he's directing it, but also the script is written by Rashida Jones and Will McCormick. They've written stuff before. So that's really cool. It's always cool whenever an actor tackles something from their childhood or something they grew up loving. And then the story's gonna be written by Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter, and Lee Ungerich. The guy who directed the 3rd one. I'm confident. I'm hoping for the best with this. But yeah, to me, Toy Story is the best trilogy ever, and it was hard because I really was going back and forth with this and the Before trilogy, but since I've seen the Toy Story trilogy more, and since I have a bigger fondness for it, that's why I had to put it as my number one. So to me, Toy Story is my favorite trilogy of all time so far, and it's sad. I really wish they weren't making a fourth one because the third one ended so well, but I hope for the best. I hope the fourth one's good because I do want to see more of these characters, but I don't know right now.
I
I'm
do
hoping for
too,
the best.
and I'm gonna try to ease you guys' mind just a little bit. Rashida Jones and Will McCormick, they also wrote Celeste and Jesse Forever,
Which is good.
It's a very good movie. Like Andy Samberg, it was one of his first like dramatic roles, and now he's getting even better at them. Now him and Rashida Jones have this relationship. It's a really just sweet romantic comedy. It's really well written. So if there's any indication that Toy Story 4 will probably be good, just look at what they did before. It's a pretty good one. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing like more in that universe, like you said. But I'm still a little hesitant because the third one was such a great wrap up. But yeah, what about you guys though? I'm actually really curious. Like, comment down below and let me know what are some of your favorite trilogies of all time down below. Yeah, so just to kick off some honorable mentions real quickly, I'm not going to go into depth. First of all, I got to thank this man that I'm fucking talking to right now because I absolutely love the Bourne trilogy now. I absolutely love all three of them. I'm not really into action films, but those were so riveting and so engaging, and I watched them all in preparation for Jason Bourne last July, and I absolutely had a blast with it. I loved Supremacy the most. Ultimatum is really great, and Identity is a really solid entry, so I would say that one. Austin Powers, Hobbit, Back to the Future, Dark Knight, Lord of the Rings. That's pretty much it for me. It was pretty much everything that was on your list and beyond. So what are some of the ones that just couldn't make it on your list?
I mean, I didn't think that would count because there's a fourth one. But you know what? I excluded that one because I actually rewatched it again, and to be honest, I really don't like it that much. The original Star Wars trilogy, of course. I really wish I could put the Evil Dead trilogy, but I haven't seen the third one, so I can't really say anything. Austin Powers trilogy, definitely. Hobbit trilogy. There's really not that much. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Is if you go by the rules, well, I guess the Jason Bourne thing kind of contradicts that, so I'll take it off. But I wanted to give it a shout out because it's amazing. But
yes.
I would consider like I said, 3 films, all at least very great. Like they all have to be like quality films. Like one can't just be so-so and the rest get better, or vice versa, or it's kind of a mixed bag. It has to be like consistent. So it's kind of hard to find something like that that's a consistent trilogy. And to be honest with you, for the worst, I'm gonna go ahead and just say right now, I don't have any. Like, because there's no trilogy out there that had like 3 terrible films. Like for instance, the Spider-Man trilogy. I like the first 2. The third one's whatever. Can't really put that one on there because the third one doesn't dictate the other 2. And then you have like, I guess if Haunted House 3 makes it a third one, that'll be my worst trilogy. But I honestly don't have one because there's not a trilogy out there where all 3 of them were sucky when they were trying to be good. Now I could easily put like shitty horror films on there. Like I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the Ginger Dead Man franchise. That one's pretty bad. The Troll franchise is pretty bad, but those are like, they weren't movies trying to be good. Let's just put it that way. Like they were inherently bad. So, and they're also fun to watch, by the way. So, yeah, I don't have any. I mean, can you think of any?
No, not really. You know, I thought for your honorable mentions you were gonna put the Hangover trilogy because I know you liked the third one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fuck everyone out there. I like the Hangover trilogy. Suck it. Now, I will say that I agree with people's complaints about the second one. Rehash the first. I still enjoyed it. I still think Todd Phillips has a really good sense of dark comedy and cinematography. And the third one was fun. Sue me. I actually like the trilogy quite a bit. So yeah.
I can't think of the worst trilogy I've seen. I really can't because honestly, a lot of people are going to be like the Star Wars prequels. That's not the worst trilogy I've seen because to be honest, I don't hate the first two in the trilogy. They're just not that great of movies, and I love the third one. So that's not the worst trilogy I've seen. I really can't think of one. So yeah.
It's one of those things where I think we don't have to have Brian. Let's be positive. We don't have to be negative all the time.
Yeah.
And plus, I honestly can't think of any. So, all right. So that is it for this week's episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this 2-year anniversary extravaganza. Brian, what are we doing next week? What is the next week's show?
Well, you brought up it's always good to be positive, and next week we're going to get into the negative films. We're going to get into the films.
Shit.
We're going to get into films that really we just did not enjoy watching, made us cringe, made us want to leave, or made us basically want to kill ourselves. Transformers: The Last Night comes out next week. And, who the fuck knows how that's going to turn out. We are going to be doing our top 5 worst films of the one and only Michael Bay.
Ugh. I don't even know how I'm going to approach this. I'm sure most might be Transformers. I need to watch more of his movies, but I've seen a good amount to where I could probably make my list. For sure, but yeah, it's going to be different next week. So top 5 worst Michael Bay films. So there you go. All right, guys, we'll wrap up the episode right now. Brian, where can the good people find you online?
Twitter at FilmJunkieBrian and on YouTube at Brian Sutfield.
That's right. And you want to follow me on Twitter? It's at RealChaser. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get updates on when we do these things live, and you can see more fuck ups like what happened in the middle of the show. We fucked up twice. Just for you on the 2nd anniversary. We actually planned all that. That was not real. We rehearsed it, so there you go. All right, so and all the links will be in the description below. So we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Top 5 Saturdays Live. I'm Chase Lee.
And I'm Brian Sutfield.
That's fucking right. And we'll see you guys next week for Top 5 Worst Michael Bay Films. Bye-bye.